it's a question of how you respond. You can't unilaterally determine in some ways what it is that you're going to finance. And I think that's a dimension which we have to bring on board. Hamid, can I turn to you at this stage?
Thank you. SDG, in fact, contain two words, which is sustainability and development. Development is something which is not new for us. Next year we will celebrate 60 years, in fact, as an institution. Thanks to the mandate, in fact, of CDG, we believe that we can help reaching, in fact, the SDG goal, and we'll come back to this one. Just maybe to say a word on the mission, in fact, of CDG. It's to collect and to collect long-term savings and channel them to projects that are important for the development of the economy. And in fact, we were, as we say in French, like Jourdain, we were doing, in fact, sustainable development without knowing it. In fact, if you look at, for example, the balance sheet of CDG and the track record of project that CDG developed, and in fact, we touched almost a majority of the 17 goals. I can just maybe give some example for the SDG number 1, poverty. Thanks to the partnership with the KfW, we are involved in microfinance, and we are playing a role there. With regard to resilient infrastructure, CDG did a very important infrastructure project like industrial zone, offshoring, and with regard, for example, to the waters, we just closed an important project, in fact, in Agadir, which is in fact the first desalination plant that has a capacity of 400,000 cubic meters, in fact, per day. So we believe that we were doing the right thing when we're discussing about it. And I think now it's time to do it right. Meaning that this sustainability aspect, which was in fact translated in the national the Sustainable Development Plan, which started in fact the state and the government working on it in 2013, and I think it was adopted in 2017, beginning of 2017. So with something like 169 targets. Now it is important, in fact, to move further, and we'll come back to the challenge, because this is something which is, for the time being, I cannot tell you that we have our breakfast with SDG, we eat SDG every day in terms of our thinking, but we are doing and working projects, but we have to integrate the commitment, in fact, of the state with regard to this, and to see how we can align our action and be able to really have an impact. Because, for example, for the community, what is important for them is what is the impact on their day-to-day. So we have to relate the impact to the SDG. And I think maybe when we tackle the challenges, I will develop this further. You have 15 seconds to describe your institution. It's like in Pictionary, if you ask somebody to draw philosophy, it's complicated. In Morocco, if you ask people what is SDG, ODD maybe, but it's not enough. And one of the challenges really, it's broadening the SDG ownership process and make sure that all the stakeholders are really aware of this and understanding exactly what it is. And my view is we have to capitalize on the three pillars of the SDG. The first one, which is the fulfillment of people's needs, which is, I think, is important that people, they see, in fact, the impact that it has on them. Now they start being familiar with the physical boundary of our planet, if you want to do this, so the climate, people are familiar. But the third one, it is so important in Morocco, which is in fact recognizing the business and job as the key to achieving this. Jobs is something which is important, and I believe that we need to communicate more and more to make sure that's stakeholder. This is the first obstacle. The second one, it is important that we align, in fact, the SDG. I was talking about the national plan, in fact, for sustainable development and the SDG objective. We should align them with national priorities. And this is calls for coordination within, in fact, the government, and this is something key. And I think a work started, and it did need to be accelerated in order to make sure that, in fact, while SDG is not something which is aside, it is embedded, in fact, in our priorities, national priorities. Which is something coming to the third one, which is related to the second, which is, in fact, ensuring coordination of public policies, and this is something key. And even though if when we talk about challenge, you have to know two aspects, with the English one and the French one. It's, the positive side, in fact, of this is, I think we are, in Morocco, the timing is right now, because we are thinking, in fact, on our economic model. The situation, in fact, of Morocco after 15 years, a lot of projects were developed, a lot of projects we were discussing of the fact that we don't find projects, but lots of infrastructure projects. But now what we realize that, in fact, that the return on this project, not only in terms of IRR, but also the impact that has, is not that visible, and we need to improve, in fact, efficiency of this. And this is, I think, the good timing now that we are trying, in fact, to see how we can improve our economic model and how we can make sure that the notion of impact is included in each strategy, in each project. And because my belief is we are talking about SDG financing, and we were talking about blending, and we're talking about the fact that public finance is not sufficient, and the private sector is bounded by the risk return. We will try to find, I think, some solution by combining a different type of funder. My belief that it won't be enough, but I think it will be a question of really thinking on new business model that enable us, in fact, to have multiple impact and so forth. And as an emerging market, it is an opportunity. We have to think differently. I think it's an opportunity for us when we define a project, when we define a strategy, to see how we can, in fact, also question the model that integrate the new situation, in fact, of the market, of the sectors. I mentioned, in fact, earlier the issue of the gap that we need, in fact, also to fill, which is the business model gap. It is, you know, the business solutions that were developed, sometimes they deal with externalities, and they deal with the impact, but as an externality, and maybe sometimes we have to. I believe that the emerging markets are well positioned, but this is something we maybe within our club will see and think how we can develop further this. But this will help us really come up with something that does not rely only on financing, because what was mentioned before, it is an important for emerging markets is we cannot pile up, in fact, the debt, and we are at the level, I mean, majority of emerging markets at a level which is very high. So we have to think about how being efficient, in fact, in structuring the project, and how the business model can be done differently in order to reduce the cost of the impacted.